Welcome to Mack-n-Cheeze Music Podcast with your hosts, Brian DeHart.
Thank you, Bruno.
My pleasure, Paylone.
Again, we want to thank our listening audience. 16 countries. Thank you so much.
Hey, nice job! Hey, way to go! Way to go!
We've been out of the loop for a few weeks, but we're back now. I'm going to be honest with you. I've had some technical difficulties.
What is wrong with you?
A firmware update, routing issues, no help from technical support. Hey, but I figured it out.
Nice work, Einstein.
Okay, enough banter. I want to thank my friend Antonio Calamano for setting up this podcast.
What a great guy.
Mack-n-Cheeze Music Podcast number 31, featuring Erik Owen, proprietor of Gig Harbor Audio. Antonio approached me and asked what I thought about high-end audio. And of course I said, I love high-end audio. And Antonio said, I got the guy you need to talk to. As a musician, I believe that most of us have been exposed to high-end audio of some caliber. As an owner of a home recording studio, I certainly expect my standards to hold up in environments such as Gig Harbor Audio. You can all judge for yourselves. Today's music tracks were all produced here at Mack-n-Cheeze Music. We are making plans for a companion video release to go on the Brian at Mack-n-Cheeze YouTube channel. That being said, Bruno, what are your thoughts?
Hey, baby. This is my best Barry White.
All right. Hey, Brian and Mack-n-Cheeze here. We're here at Gig Harbor Audio. Erik Owen, owner. We have walked into an audiophiles paradise. I just got to tell you something.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's a team effort.
Well, you know what? You've got some pretty qualified people here. Could you tell us the history of the place?
I'd say it's something that just kind of created itself in that during the first recession, I had a building up the street that really cleared out from all of the real estate sales and title and financing places. And so I put my small office and I put my turntable that I was working on at the time. Yeah. And it just snowballed from there. A friend said, "What are you doing?" I've got one of those. Spinning around things. And so he brought in his.
Wow.
And it just grew. It mushroomed.
Wow. So I take it that your clientele's from all over the Puget Sound area.
I'd say all over the country, and we ship all over the world.
Oh, awesome. And you're doing installations across the country as well?
Installations would mainly be around here. We do some in Seattle, Olympia-ish, but mostly installations around the area. Yeah, which is usually Wi-Fi, like bolstered Wi-Fi, TVs, projectors, automation. We do surveillance cameras. That's mostly around the area, just because if it was someone who called up from Chicago or something, we'd say, we'll help you find someone who could be really cool in the area, but you should probably work with someone in the area. Yeah. Shippable stuff will ship wherever.
So guest today, Antonio Calamano.
Hello, everybody.
Calamano. And Antonio's the one who actually set up this podcast. So do you have some questions? You're one of his customers, right? So,
yes. Actually, I came in here because as I got older, I was looking for the purity of sound, right? Because I think that's something that you get into as you get older. You look for things that are more aesthetically pleasing to both the eye and the ear. And I bought a Technics SL1700, sort of crapped out after a month, and I came here to see if you could fix it. And we had a conversation of whether it's financially reasonable to actually fix it or just get something better. And I ended up getting a Riga Planner 1, which is incredible, by the way. And the problem that I have with vinyl is that the moment you switch over to vinyl, it's very hard to listen to music in any other medium. Because from what I understand, your ear listens in analog, and you lose a lot of the quality when it comes to digital formats.
We could be here for like 10 hours
just talking about that,
answering just that.
Yeah.
starting with what I think is the really cool thing about vinyl is that every single vinyl itself is different.
Yep.
So that's why one of our T-shirts is it's got Japanese characters on it, and it says in Japanese, Pink Floyd, Adam Hart Mother, pressed in Tokyo. And the reason why people look for Japanese pressings is because in Japan and Austria and some other places, they would only press a certain amount of, for example, Fleetwood Mac Rumors.
Okay.
Fleetwood Mac Rumors, Japanese pressing. I don't know if they did Japanese pressing, but just for example, they would print like 500. If that same year run of that same title was pressed in the United States, for example, it was usually something like 2,000 or 2,500 from that master.
Sure.
So what does that mean? That means that if you're buying a Japanese pressing that was actually pressed there, and it's real, your odds of getting a really, really good one are like 100%. Like, really, wow, I've never heard that album sound like that because it was a really good pressing. So then if you compare those, maybe the first 500 of the ones pressed in the US are great, but 600 to 2,500 is kind of diminishing quality. And so then if you go to a store and get, an American pressed one, the odds of getting a great sounding one are like 20%, if that, right? So the other ones that are kind of diminishing in quality, and they don't number them, so you don't know. So you could get one that is number 2,200, and it's like, it's pretty good. I might as well just be listening to my iPod, though. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But then those ones that are, 1 through 500 of whatever country, it's like, I've never heard that album sound like this. So it's just starting with the source itself. That album is better than other ones. And there's like websites. There's one website called, I think, Hot Stampers, where you can buy many different albums for like $500 to $1,000 each. But they guarantee that it'll be the best sounding version of that album that you've heard. And they don't get many returns. So it's like they track down, and the only way you can know if it's a hot stamper is by listening to it. So they get, Black Sabbath, the one with the little nun on the front, and it's the best sounding version of that you've ever heard. And then you go to like, what kind of cartridge, what kind of turntable, what kind of stereo, but it starts with the vinyl.
Very interesting. And so how many reproductions do you think a master disc is good for?
I'd say that's probably over my head.
Yeah.
It's above my pay grade.
Above your pay grade?
It's probably like a Jack White question, like how many can you get out of that master with whatever technology you're using. But the explanation for why one album sounds better than the other, like people will often come in here and they'll be like, can you please explain to me why this album that I paid $100 for sounds worse than this one that I got at Goodwill for 25 cents?
And what's the answer to that? Well,
it's just what I said.
Yeah,
like, you might have gotten number 50 out of 100 from 1978. And then this one that you paid $100 for, it's, not saying anything negative about the person who produced it.
Sure, right.
But it's just not as good as this one. Like, something happened special in that mastering session, I guess. Yeah.
Well, me, because I have a recording studio and I'm an engineer and I'm a working musician at times. I'm at the top of my job as well. But how did you develop your ears? How did that happen? What was the process?
That's an embarrassing question because I probably have the worst ears in this store.
I've just listened to what you've been playing back. I'm going to argue with you right down to the wire on that one.
I guess, honestly, in answer to that question, I used to play around with a Fostex 4-track recorder, right? Like many people did with a cassette tape, right? You record 3 tracks. You can record drums, bass, guitar, kind of your foundation, right? Mm-hmm. And then what do you have to do? You have to bounce those 3 tracks to the first track, right? Or 4, or whatever. When you're doing that in the process, if you want to keep your 4-track, which most high school kids don't have money to buy an 8-track, if you want to do that to add more tracks, like vocals, keyboards, whatever, you bounce that to that track. And I think just that process started me being frustrated with diminishing sound quality.
Right.
Just that. It was so offensive and what? I have to, and especially when you're doing it for a couple of years, I spent hours, days doing that simple drum track. And now by bouncing those 3 tracks onto number 4, just to add this, because of the technology that I have to lose so much quality in that. I can't hear my fingers anymore on the string. Mm-hmm. I can't hear that, but I've got the foundation. So I think that's what kind of, and there's another very nice dude who works here named Jake, who has a band, and he does all of their recording. His band's called Minus the Bear, and he did all of their mastering, and he's the lead singer, guitarist. His hearing, and George, our tech, I would say is different than mine. I don't know if I'd even say it's better.
Though. Right.
They hear in a different way, mm-hmm. and I certainly, whenever I have a chance to learn from how they listen, I pay attention. But they can set things up and hear differences in cables. They can, now that's a whole nother...
We could go down that rabbit hole. I've had arguments with people on the cables.
Let's not even talk about cables because it's such a charged question.
Yeah.
Like, is a snake oil?
Yeah. How much impedance does it have?
Yeah. In a way, you know what? Who cares? The really cool guy who imports this brand over here, Line Magnetic. Uh-huh. They're single-ended triode tube amps, most of them, and they run through super efficient speakers. His name's Jonathan, Tone Audio, really cool guy. When you ask him a question, this is just the setup. That's probably $60,000, $60,000.
It's a down payment for a house.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
The logical question would be, well, should I get some pretty expensive speaker cables and source cables and this and that, and to match that? I guess theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, like if you ask him, he'll say, who cares? Just get some simple lamp wire and you're going to be pretty happy. You could do whatever, like at that point it's like you're EQing your system by using a different type of cable. You could get a $5,000 pair of cables. And I'm not saying they're bad. Mm-hmm. They're probably good. But do you have to do that? Right now, this system has an $89 pair of speaker cables on a $60,000 system. I'll turn it on. It sounds pretty darn good.
Oh, it looks totally old school. It looks like an old Altec Lansing setup from years ago.
Spot on.
Yeah.
The amplifiers from Line Magnetic are based on Western Electric.
Okay.
This particular pair of speakers is based on the Altec Iconic speaker.
Yeah.
So it's almost an exact replica, but improved. So it's got an 18-inch driver and a horn. They're 102 dB efficient.
That's pretty clean.
I forgot what we were talking about in the beginning.
It doesn't matter how you got your ears. That was.
Yeah. I think it's an ongoing kind of journey of, you're searching for something, and like here we found it, and what we try to get back to is reference. I don't know if you heard me talking with that guy on the phone of various questions.
I've overheard a bunch of conversations, yeah.
And but I think for me, it's getting back to just something that's clean. where you've got those 3 tracks on your inexpensive 4-track, and you're really surprised that it sounds so good on a thin tape. And then you want it all to sound that good. But then when you bounce it, it takes this. And so if that's an analogy to, some sources, some cables, some speakers, you want it to be as good as that first simple thing that you remember.
Antonio, you've got a question.
So, yeah, I got tons of questions. I would equate that to, I guess, the vinyl setup per se makes you feel the music comparatively to the digital setup. You're just listening to it. You can sing to it, you can hear the melody and the rhythm and percussions and, but vinyl creates some sort of warmth that makes you feel present because you cannot hit skip. You're sort of forced to actually most likely listen to the entire record and get into the be present with the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. 2,
it's the spiritual side of
it is.
So when you say that, like, with the maybe question being why is that compared to digital? If you go past just the quality of that pressing itself, and you're like, man, I really enjoy playing this record more than my streamer or my whatever computer. What happens on a record, there's a whole bunch of other directions of like explanation. When you're playing a record, it's like a shoe. That record is going to be breaking in continuously. Like, it'll just keep breaking in. So the more you play one particular record, the better it'll sound. I had this one guy a couple of years ago come in, and he brought in a reel-to-reel that he wanted to sell with boxes and boxes of recordings of his albums. And he said, this is going to be the best purchase that you'll ever make, Erik. And I go, okay, why?
He's telling you that.
He said, all of these reel-to-reels are right when I bought every album that I own. I sliced it open and I dropped the needle and I pressed record. So all of these reel-to-reels are the first listen from each of my awesome albums. And he had a really great collection. And I said, that's really, really cool. That's really cool. However, you're basically, when you hear each of those reel-to-reels, you are hearing the first play of that album. So let's compare it again to a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. Are your shoes really awesome the first day that you wear them? You just walk out of Payless Shoes or Nordstrom's or wherever, and you put on this pair of shoes that fits perfectly and pretty good. Are they as good as they feel a month later? No. Because they've broken in and they feel really good. And then, they wear out and whatever, but the point being is that album is like alive. When you trigger a recorded MP3 or FLAC file or whatever, you are hearing exactly the same thing every single time that you play it. So the more you put on Fleetwood Mac Rumors, that one album that you bought, the more you play it, the better it's going to sound.
Interesting. I've never heard that perspective before, but I trust you.
I'm sure if there's going to be a lot of people who maybe watch this and they'll be like,
we want it.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
That's total bullshit. This is just my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Your cartridge also will break in.
Yeah.
The cartridge itself will break in. So if you're careful with it, a good cart can last for like 10 years. if you don't knock off the stylus, it itself is going to be breaking in. The coils will break in.
Interesting.
An amp will break in. Speakers will break in.
Now, will it break into the point that it'll fade away? Just like a good shoe that eventually will just wear out and then...
Yes. So I think the best way to explain that would be like a cartridge, a turntable cartridge. Like you have a Rega P1.
Yeah, is it the P1 or the Planar 1, the latest edition that came out?
Yeah, P1.
P1, yeah.
So that if it's with the stock cartridge, which is like an Audio-Technica 3600 that says Rega across the front, a very good cartridge for the money. The coils in there will slowly oxidize like over 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And once they start to oxidize, the brilliance or the detail might kind of slowly go down. But at the same time, it's kind of getting a little bit warmer, the sound. Mm-hmm. So where is the point of like kind of, well, I need to change the cartridge? It's hard to say, because sometimes people would have like a 15-year-old cartridge and they'll be like, this thing sounds awesome. It just needs to be retipped. Like a older Fidelity Research cartridge that I have, that I got from my friend Matthew, who runs a Hawthorne Stereo in Seattle. I bought it from him for like $200. Fidelity Research MC201, older Japanese cartridge, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 years old. We had it retipped, meaning just putting on a new stylus. It sounds amazing. It might not have like sizzle and super defined detail, but it's got this warmth that is like really pleasant. And yeah, I want to sit in front of that.
So I've got into high-end audio back after when I was in college, and I'm dating myself, it was the late 70s. And my friends who were hugely into it had Yamaha and Mack-n-Cheeze amplifiers. And I just one of the things, the high-end, high-quality audio's been around for generations. Those amplifiers with old tube-style amps were generating 0.01% distortion. That's inaudible. You cannot hear that. And so I it just amazes me that the history of high quality sound reproduction. Do you have some things you could tell people about the history of sound replication? Now, I'm sure you've got some insights.
Probably,
because this place looks like it's all vintage.
I think I know a little bit about this and a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. George could probably tell you way better about like the history of audio, and probably what makes him such a good tech. Don't let him hear that I said that. Is that when he looks at, and that's why it's really hard for someone to just kind of learn this. Like I work with George, for example, like every day.
Right.
I can't learn it because I don't know the history of, okay, you've got the same amp, year after year, it slightly changes.
Sure.
And he knows what those changes were.
Right.
So he's able to troubleshoot something and go back in and say, oh, this or this changed. Right. For me, I know a lot of these brands. I know kind of where a lot of them came from, what a lot of their goal was to do, like BBC speakers. Their goal, and like name amplifiers, their goal is to reproduce the human voice. Yep. That's it. The reason why it crossed over into hi-fi so well is like BBC speakers, British Broadcasting, is because once you get the human voice right, everything else like bass falls into place. So they weren't made to be in someone's apartment or hi-fi room.
Right.
They were made to reproduce the human voice.
Right.
And they do a really good job of it. I would say one thing in maybe the evolution of audio reproduction or hi-fi that I think is let's just say it's interesting. The word distortion. I think it's an interesting thing to reduce or avoid or be aware of. And it might not be a perfect analogy, but the analogy I usually use, and it's a flawed analogy, but I think it's interesting. If you take a bottle of organic Cabernet wine, and you take a bottle of like 2010 French Chateau Neuf de Pape,
of which you're an enophile, I take it.
I like wine.
Yeah, I'm a sommelier.
This can get really dangerous. I'm a former sommelier, and he's a sommelier as well, like
this
certified
is awesome.
sort of master sommelier.
You'll be teaching me these things of why it is. In that, by the way, I had a 2001 bottle of Chateau Neuf de Pape 2 weeks ago.
Which producer?
Oh my God! I've got a picture of it.
Let's digress into fun and games, folks.
For a second, I was trying to make the assimilation of Brett.
Brettanomyces?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes it's intentional. Most of the times it's a flaw.
But it adds character or it takes away from the wine?
Well, it depends on your palate. Some people like it, some people don't. Usually it's a flawed winemaking.
You know?
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. In fact, we didn't know that we were going to
know this house.
We didn't know that we were going to get that bottle until we got to this place. And, they opened it like 20 minutes before we drank it, double decanted it.
Yeah.
And then it was weird it was a place called the Herb Farm.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Woodville.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the wines that they usually put out are pretty good, but we wanted to get a really good something to taste. And the amount that this bottle opened over the course of 3 hours,
it's amazing.
It was like a completely different glass of wine. It was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So back to audio.
Yeah.
No, that is literally the perfect correlation.
Well, but I think there's a big correlation here, and because and I'm kind of jumping back into hearing because and I take this analogy as being a sommelier and also being an engineer. I'm always looking for balance. I want to be able not only to be able to see the mix with these speakers. I can see what's going on with the sound production. I can visualize it. I can actually see it. But it's the same thing with wine. Is that there's this whole spectrum. There's this balance. There's this thing there, and it correlates into this. It's just another sense. And as somebody who appreciates fine wine, it makes sense that you can appreciate fine audio because the same components that make wine what it is makes the audio that we hear. That's the same. It's the same. Hope I'm not leaving people behind here, and maybe they think I'm blowing smoke, but there are sort of the same philosophies involved with that.
I think so. Well, I didn't even really think about it before I said it. Just those couple hours of opening up of that bottle would be compared to playing that album week after week, right? Like it's just kind of expanded.
Yeah.
The point that I was shooting for with the comparison of the organic bottle, which might taste quite good, compared to the French, a really good bottle of French or whatever wine. In that, there's sulfites in most good wines.
Yeah, it's naturally occurring. Yeah.
It's a byproduct of fermentation.
Yeah, even the organic wines can have
there's
sulfites.
There's more toxins.
That's right.
In that bottle that I drank and really, really enjoyed than a bottle of something that might have been, for whatever good reason, is organic, whatever that means.
Right, whatever that means.
But you might certainly feel better the next day if you drank a whole bottle of this one compared to the French one.
Mm-hmm.
So the point here is that if your goal in buying an amplifier or listening to music or a DAC or whatever is to get rid of distortion, like if you're looking at the specs, like the output and the distortion of an amplifier, at the very least, I personally consider it to be misleading. So if you're looking at the specs of this, or you discount this amplifier, that amplifier, because it has a certain level of distortion, whatever that means, with that amp, I think it's more and more often misconception that I don't want that amp because of the level of distortion. Just turn it on and listen to it.
Right.
You might love it.
Yeah.
And you might discount it because it's, someone wrote a review or it's on paper got this level of distortion. If you go back to the wines, on paper, this one has way off the charts sulfites compared to this one, which is clean and nothing against this organic bottle.
Right.
Which one are you going to enjoy more?
I'm going for the sulfites.
me as well. Robert Parker doing the service since 1982. So, you gotta put that in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, everything's recorded. So it's really interesting. So I see that some of your amplifiers, are all of your amplifiers here do they all have tubes?
No. We do both tube and solid state. This that we were listening to earlier is a great example of a solid state amplifier. These are built in Salisbury, England by a company called Name.
Okay.
And the guy who started it, Julian, who I think died however many years ago, the reason he made it, he was kind of an out-of-the-box thinker. He wanted to play back the recordings that he'd made of his friends playing live music. And that's the direction that he went in creating those amplifiers.
Interesting.
So
don't apologize, Antonio.
Well, no.
No dumb questions here.
British made.
Yeah.
How or when? Because I had no idea. When you think of electronics, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you automatically think, China, Japan, some of the U.S., but you don't think Great Britain when it comes to electronics. I don't know if that's ingrained wrongfully, or I'm now learning that Riga, these guys, and English makes very, very high-end quality sort of audio components.
You go into the history of audio reproduction on that one. I mean, some of the best microphones in the world are from Russia. So I mean, I think
it in different parts of the world, things came out of different things. Like in Russia, there's a lot of I am intimately familiar with Russia.
Yeah.
For various reasons, but in Russia, a lot of things came out of military innovation, right? Like the tubes, and many different things. In Japan, I would imagine
the 70s receiver. Wars.
Yeah.
And even though they had German names, they were still made in Japan. Like Harman Kardon and Marantz.
I think the main one that we carry, a really good example of Japanese, is Accuphase. So Accuphase was Kenwood. Kenwood was started by, as far as I understand, and I'm sure someone will write in and say, you're totally wrong about this history.
Let them.
But I believe that
care.
it was like four engineers that started Kenwood. And their goal was to do the best of the best. Like just really good hi-fi reproduction for someone's home, price no object. And they started doing, first year, second year, however many years, and then two of them wanted to make it so that it could be more affordable for the usual person, like a consumer. So they're, okay, how can we make these more affordable into different lines? And the other two engineers said, that's not what we signed up for. Our goal was to do the best of the best, and that's what we like to do. So they branched off, and the two made Kensonic, which turned into AccuPhase. So AccuPhase is like, the best of the best parts, really awesome innovation. It's like Kenwood, but Kenwood chose the direction of, it's good because I've had Kenwood, and AccuPhases are really expensive. So they're both good directions, but that's how those kind of were created and formed.
And you said you didn't know much about history. Yeah. There you go. I'm
making it all up.
That is actually a key point. That's a key point of what audio reproduction in the industry. That was very insightful. Thank you very much. That's something else I didn't know. I'm so happy I showed up today.
AccuPhase is really good stuff.
Yeah, so some of your amps, I see some big tubes, and you said you're really familiar with like Russian stuff. So back in the old days when I was listening to stuff, can pretty much guarantee the tubes were probably Western Electric designed, and for all of us musicians out there who like those old tubes in their amplifiers, Western Electric tubes from the 60s and the 50s are coveted. And I've even heard guys scrounging stuff out of the 40s I think maybe there's a little bit of a lack of full information on it. Just because you have a tube that was made in the 40s compared to one that was made in the 60s, the application is if that tube was designed to put into a guitar amplifier, you don't want to pull something that was made for a piece of military hardware and put it in. You're not going to have the same result. These tubes that are hanging out here, what are the sources of these tubes on that amp?
I am much less of a tube expert. We have a really cool guy who works here named Delmas, who does all of our tube testing. He'll check out a tube, he'll research it, he'll take it home and put it in his various line magnetic amps, and then write. That's what all those shelves over there are. He'll write his comments on them and say, this one has this kind of character, this and that. We don't really sell that many tubes, but it's good to have the tubes. And I would say George probably knows far more about tubes than I do. When we play a tube amp in our store, we try to just play them with the stock tubes that they come with.
Sure.
You can kind of hot rod an amp.
Absolutely.
Western Electric is actually back.
Are they?
Making 300B tubes.
Really?
They're
I didn't know that.
$1,500 for a pair. My friend Stan bought a pair, and they're the best tubes around. They're just, it's the real Western Electric company. They're using all the same equipment.
Components and stuff, yeah.
And they make the same tubes.
Wow.
Question about, like, comparing old Western Electric tubes with the new ones.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine it's probably a lot like wine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the same house. It's a really good, but I don't know, like, I would imagine a lot depends on the rain, the ground, the fruit.
Right.
That year. Maybe.
That's what they call it. Yeah, that's
maybe.
Well, it's kind of like Fender guitars. In the old days, they had there was one lady who wrapped the pickups, right? And there were people who covered her pickups over everybody else's pickups. I mean, there's so many different rabbit holes you can go down in sound reproduction. It's amazing.
Yeah. George will probably refuse, but maybe on the next podcast I can like trick him into giving some of his.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
he'll
refuse until we trick him into it.
Do you feel that since you've had Gig Harbor Audio for how long?
2012.
Oh, nice.
Wow, yeah.
Have you seen the new generations, or the younger generations actually be more? Because when I was growing up, vinyl was slow. My father had a Macintosh, and he had a room that was covered in carpet, and this is probably early 80s, and ultimately had probably anywhere from 10 to 20,000 records that I had no idea. We ended up using them as skeet traps and burn and pile, and we called the museum to try to curate them, and they just went, this is too much, we can't do this. And we used it as frisbees. Who knows what he had in there,
man.
Well, and my father was born in 1928, so he got to see Plaza Domingo live. He got to see Jussi Björling. He got to travel the world and collect a lot of that stuff. Who knows how much money I just burned away and shot. And then
you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, evidently.
I was, which is the problem, because so my brother used to be a DJ, and my father had this Macintosh hi-fi stereo system, and my brother just blew it up. I don't know how expensive it was, but I know that my dad was pretty upset. So as I was growing up, the Walkman comes in, then the CD player comes in, then the little CD player that you would put, comes in, and my generation sort of went from big format to smaller format, MP3, MP4, whatever. And now as you get older, it sort of bounces back around. I totally forgot the reason why I'm telling you this.
Like, do I think that like younger people?
They all of a sudden, the hipster mentality actually got into vinyl. I don't know if they got into vinyl out of the purity of the sound, or did they get into vinyl because it's the hipster thing to do. But it actually resurfaced a whole lot of that, and brought back the movement.
I'd say probably all of the above. When we first opened the store, like in almost 10 years ago, we were up the street in very, very similar setup. So there's like a listening room kind of, and a room with a bunch of gear and stuff. Up there were doors, like these French doors with glass that you could see through them. And up there, maybe one customer would come in per day, if that.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care, because it was like a cool place to, work on something and kind of make little projects. So it was kind of grew into a store. But teenager, he's probably 17. He certainly had his driver's license. He came in one day and he said, I usually listen to music on my phone, MP3. What is the deal with records? Like, my dad has records. And I said, I don't know, it's subjective, I would say, but I like records because of the following, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what's the last song that you listened to? And he said, well, we listened to Dark Side of the Moon last night on my MP3, and it was awesome. And I go, all I have a good copy of Dark Side. I'll put it on our turntable and just tell me what you think. So played it. It played the first side all the way through. He didn't come out of the room. I could see him in there from time to time, like I'm doing my own stuff in there.
Right.
And it came to the end of the thing, and so there's kind of silence. And the next thing I heard was him calling someone, and he goes, "Dude, you gotta come down here. I've never heard it like this before."
Yeah.
And so, he came out and we're chatting and stuff, and he's like, "There's something like, you've got a really nice stereo that it played on, but maybe there's something about," and I think that particular kid moved to California or something, but he would come in for the next couple of years, and he bought a little turntable and would keep buying albums. Yeah. But I think there's a whole bunch of different reasons why someone would get into it. I think that he was looking for the sound of it. Mm-hmm. And it didn't hurt that it's a pretty fun thing. Mm-hmm. You can feel a record. You can collect them. They've got art on them. You could read the liner notes. You could read this and that. And then you put it on, and I think it all contributes to different people liking different things.
That's kind of the problem too, because I had probably upwards of 150 cassettes at one point while I was 10 or 12 years old, and then it became into 500 CDs, and then I stole so much music off of LimeWire, and now I'm like, okay, here goes another $50 on a record. And it's building my entire collection all over again from the beginning, but in LP format.
Yeah. Someone smarter than I could probably explain why they sound better, but I think that cassettes, it's just not a really good format because it's got that little piece of metal with the pad, which usually breaks, and it's just not a good mechanism.
Yeah.
CDs, I personally didn't really get into a lot. Like, I didn't collect a lot of them and like arrange them in a big case on our wall. I just didn't really get into it, I think, because I was traveling a lot at that time. But if you just took a CD with a good CD player and put it next to a good turntable and a good, cartridge and everything on it, it would first, like we were first talking to, come down to the quality of that album that you put on. CDs would be just like an MP3 or that CD is exactly the same every time you play it, and they're all going to be the same because it's a computer file put onto a pretty cool little disc. The albums are just different.
Very, computer very files don't have a soul.
They have ones and zeros.
Yeah,
that's how they.
Instead
of it actually having with a needle on
the groove.
With the groove actually tracking through there and reproducing the actual configuration of the groove. I mean, it's really pretty fascinating.
I'll say we do a lot of streaming at the store. Like what we were listening to before was streaming from a streamer from Wi-Fi into a DAC, or digital to analog converter. At that point, when you're listening to this type of stuff, that's got soul. It's really interesting, innovation and technology, to the point that someone who has, $10,000 stereo or $10,000 turntable, and they're listening to this and that, it really comes down to the quality of the album that you're putting on that to get it better than a high-end streaming system.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like that streaming system is not totally over the top, but it's certainly not
I'll vouch
cheap
for it.
Or simple. that streamer itself is $7,500. It's a name streamer. We consider probably the best platform around name, especially if you're using it with a third party like Rune, which is a cool control. And then it goes out of that digitally to an upsampler or an upscaler, which is also a British company. they have some weird algorithm or whatever they do in there
right.
that it just sounds. They take, they could take an MP3, which is a kind of cut up Swiss cheese.
Yep. Over compressed, all of it, yeah.
Compressed and upsample it and make it sound really quite good.
That's interesting.
But then when you take a good file, like a FLAC file or MQA stream, and put it through a DAC like that, it's like then the comparison between vinyl and digital is it's going to have to be a really nicely pressed album to sound that good.
So we've talked about the history. You've got a great collection of albums over here. What are your sources for your album collection?
We buy a fair amount of albums of people just bringing them in, like collections. We mostly buy from Mobile Fidelity, which are brand new albums, sealed.
Okay.
We buy from Sub Pop. We buy from Light in the Attic, Seattle. Both Sub Pop and Light in the Attic are Seattle. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Mobile Fidelity gets them from a bunch of different producers.
Wow. So a lot of this stuff is like first generation pressing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, these are brand new.
Okay.
There's a lot of albums out there, like out in these two rooms, that are like original pressings that we've got over the years. People buy like any open album that we get that's good. We'll clean it, usually on a VPI record vacuum. So it'll, you brush it, put on the solution, it vacuums up everything, and then we put it in a paper, the album itself, and then clean the art or the cover. That goes in its own 5 millimeter or 5 milligram, whatever it is, plastic holder, and then the album goes behind it. So all the vintage ones we listen to from start to finish.
Okay. Well, hey, Erik, you going to ask us back sometime? Is that...
Yes, next week.
Oh, yeah. I'm a little bit busy next week, but we could reschedule maybe in a couple months.
We'll put you in the office. It'll be like Paul Schaefer.
Yeah. Oh,
You'll be there every day.
Yeah. It'd be great. So Antonio's got to get going.
Be like the Roots.
And so
the Roots of the band?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You'll just be there every day, like all the time.
I like how in the, I don't know, what is it called, the Tonight Show or the Late Show? Well, the Jimmy Fallon, they call them every now and then Jimmy Fallon's band, even though they're like a legitimately incredible
Roots are
band
awesome.
prior to being in the Jimmy Fallon, but
I like it when they break it down to the toys.
So, yeah.
The mini, everyone's tied in the toys.
It's a good setup. I mean, it's an incredible band.
Yeah,
so
it's good stuff.
It's like, what's that joke? People who think Jethro Tull is just a guy in a band. The one guy.
Yeah, it's not.
So
his name's Ian.
Yeah, Ian Anderson, right? Yeah.
So,
By the one thing I wanted to say about what we were talking about before about vinyl and turntables. Your particular turntable, all turntables have different goals and of what they want to do, different philosophies of doing things. Your table, in contrast with a turntable like that, which is a lot of mass, a lot of materials and different things. It's a lot of mass for certain reasons, to get rid of resonance, this or that. What Rega's philosophy is get out of the way. So their concept is lightweight, they don't want to impart their character onto whatever you're listening to, which is really what we shoot for with any system. It's you don't want to add anything and make it sound better. You just want to focus on the source and allow it to sound as good as it can. And then, try to find better, as good of sources as you can. But Rega's concept is just impart the least amount of character that you can and let whatever source come through.
That's very interesting. Transparency, what I mentioned earlier about these these speakers. What are these? They're the LA.
These are Chartwell LS35As.
Yeah. Man.
You had speakers here about a month and a half or 2 months ago when I last came in. They looked like a mixture of a honeycomb and an egg carton. And they were gray sort of panels, like a tessellation basically of a speaker. And you were playing some sort of clapping music.
Not those? Not the JBLs?
No.
Not that front?
Basically, it was like a bunch of flat slots interconnected like that.
How big were they?
Probably
small,
around that same size, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what they were. They sounded incredible. You were playing like a clapping sort of... You could hear the clap go from one end of the speaker, bounce around the entire room, and then travel over to the other side.
Did they have one driver in the middle?
Yes.
They could have been the KEF LS50s.
Maybe.
They're kind of gray, but they have one driver with the tweeter in the middle.
Yeah, actually.
So what those are, KEF, the company KEF, made the drivers for the first LS35As. They made the driver and the tweeter. It was the KEF B110 and the, I think, T25 tweeter. And then a bunch of different companies made that speaker with KEF drivers. The KEF LS50, which is an awesome speaker, they were created for, I believe, the 50th anniversary of KEF, and at the same time commemorating that speaker. So that is like the modern version of the LS35A. That's
really?
why it's called LS50.
Okay.
So they're the kind of modern take, or KEF's take, on that particular speaker.
Yeah, it looked like something that was designed by somebody studying Bauhaus movement back in the late 20s or 30s.
It's certainly a different look.
Yeah.
Those are very open. It is a different type of speaker because these are closed cabinet, which does allow you to push them all the way to the wall in a very small room. The LS50s have a port in the back, and they're quite open and airy, but they do have to be placed a little bit differently.
See, so this opens Pandora's box, because that Riga P1 is basically like getting a 3 Series BMW, or a WRX STI, like a low-level race car. And you go, well, how much faster can
George's?
Yeah. Well, you look at it and you go, well, this is fast. How much faster can I go?
I think you asked me that before.
Yeah,
it's when we were first talking about that. Yeah,
yes,
it's a great analogy.
It gets very compulsive, very obsessive.
What good is a Maserati if you haven't got an Autobahn? Yeah,
well, it starts. You start tinkering.
I think there's that's kind of what makes it a hobby, but I think for me, over the years, you go this way and that way, you expand and contract and do different things. There are sweet spots in it, and Rega, for example, any Rega table is a sweet spot. If you have, and then it's just about making it appropriate to the rest of the system and the room. So that's one cool thing about a lot of these companies, in that you can get something pretty inexpensive and it's like there's nowhere to go. I mean, you can certainly increase this or that, but depending on how you listen, you could have a Rega Brio, or their smaller one, the IO, which I think is like $500 or $600.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a very simple pair of Rega speakers like the Kites, and a simple Rega turntable, P1. And that's all you need.
See, now, I sell houses for a living. I'm a broker with Christian & Company. And now there is the burning sensation in the back of my head. Sell another house so you can get a P3.
Forget about diapers.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I just had 2 kids, and I'm constantly like, I need to get another listing now so I can get a better stereo equipment. I can get more stuff. stereo equipment. You can get more stuff.
What I would say about the difference between those is anything that you, like if you're starting with a P1, if you go up to a P2 or a P3, what it really does is it changes or it improves the sound of every single one of your albums. Like so you're listening with a P1 for like 6 months or a year, and you listen to 1,000 record collection, sounds great. You then go to a P3, which has a better arm, 330, and it's got a glass platter, which does something to the timing and the noise floor.
Okay.
And maybe you use a better cartridge, right? It makes every one of your albums different. So you just bought an entirely new record collection by changing your turntable, or amp, or speakers for that matter. It doesn't work backwards though. It might work backwards kind of with the idea of simplifying. Like, for example, I don't need this preamp and monoblock power amps. I'd be pretty darn happy with a simple integrated, like a Rega Brio or a Name Atom or something, and a simpler pair of speakers. But when the source of like a turntable, I guess I agree with you in that that race car is going to extract more and more as you go up.
Well, and then once you're done driving your, Chinese and Japanese automakers, you've gotten as much horsepower and speed that you can out of the STI. Now you want to go German, and you want to build an M3, and then let's go get a Porsche, and let's get an Audi, and let's,
So the going among different brands, you can usually get to the same point. They just do it differently. For example, that's probably the best comparison to Rega, VPI. VPI, if you go up to their top of the line ones, it's really heavy. But you get to the same kind of transparency and timing as if you would be going to the top of the line Rega, which would be like a P10 with a really nice arm. But if you look at what's happened from the entry-level VPI Scout to the top of the line Prime Signature or whatever, it's like tripled in the weight, and it's got more mass and heft to every one of their parts, more torque for the motor, etc. Rega, from a P1 to a P10, there's half as much materials in a P10. A P1 is a rectangular square with this and that. The P10, if you took just the plinth of it, it's a cutout kind of piece of Swiss cheese where there's nothing there.
Less to be in the way is the philosophy, right?
Yeah. Point being, if you went among different brands, getting better and better, the place where you end up being Lin, VPI, Rega, different brands, is equally as good.
It's how they get there, basically. The different design philosophies.
Yeah, it's a different way of achieving that, but they get to music. Like, the music gets better and better in that when you're listening to that 1,000 LP collection, each time you improve the means of extracting information from that vinyl, then you're getting more and more detail. And maybe the noise floor goes down a little bit, which allows more detail to come through.
Wow. Very fascinating. Well, this has been an incredible podcast. Thank you that you're going to let us come back and pick your brain some more. Give us a plug on Gig Harbor Audio.
We do a lot of, I think, fun things. My partner Jonathan does all of the audio video, so he puts in really cool automation. He puts in excellent Wi-Fi. Any video, like he can calibrate any TV to actually look better than it did out of the box.
Wow.
We do a lot of other stuff here. I think we did a lot more before COVID. We did live music. One thing that we did a couple months ago, a good friend named Chris Bell shot a video of one of our mutual friends, Bob. It's on the Stereophile YouTube channel right now. The video is called Listening. I think if I was to plug anything, it would be that, in that I think it shows what we as a group of people enjoy. And it's usually music. No matter how you get to it, it's just music. And sitting down, whether it's $100 setup or a $50,000 setup. This video that Chris Bell did, it's a video of a really interesting audio reviewer who is a lot of people like because he was just a really cool guy and a very simple writer. His name's Art Dudley. He had a pair of Altec flamencos that I ended up with and that our friend Bob came in and listened to. Bob is deaf, completely deaf. He's got probably $200,000 to $300,000 stereo systems. So the question then is, why? Why does he have this expensive of a hobby when he's deaf? But the way that he listens is he uses a mylar balloon filled with helium. And he can tell you not only who he's listening to, what album it is, if it's a good pressing or not, but he can comment on the entire system. So he asked me to buy these Altec speakers from me. And since I bought it from a friend of a friend, Art Dudley, I said, you can just, as long as I can come over and listen to him anytime, you can have them for the price that I bought them. During this kind of interaction, my friend Chris was sitting there and he's like, am I seeing what I just saw? Like, did this deaf person just buy a really cool pair of speakers, even though he's got, already about $200,000 worth of stuff at his house? That might be a pretty interesting video. And so this video kind of goes more into Bob as to how he hears, how he listens, and what I didn't really know about Bob that comes out in this video is the type of music that he listens to is more like he really loves the Grateful Dead. He likes very simple blues and jazz where he can see the people. Like his very good example was, I can see, what I like about music is I can see Jerry over here. He'll start something. And then the other guitarist in the Dead, Bob Weir, will start this or tag on to it and respond with this little phrase. And then they'll go back and forth, and then it's very similar to like Muddy Waters, and it's a conversation amongst these 4 or 5 people, and that's what he loves to see. And it was really cool. I think if I'd like to plug anything, it's what the 10 or so people here, what we like to do.
Yeah, that's very, very awesome. Well, that's really interesting so he can recognize what's going on musically with the balloon with helium in it.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
What kind of matter of physics is that? What is that?
So it explains it in the video, but it's like tactile. And if you get a mylar balloon and fill it with helium, if you get just a regular balloon filled with air, you'll feel a whole landscape of music in there.
Interesting. You're right.
A lot of times he'll also come over and put his hand on the speaker.
I was going to say like Beethoven.
Or he can put his hand on like a coffee table and feel that. But in the balloon, check it out on YouTube. It's called, just go to Stereophile YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how he listens, and he hears as good or better than most people. Like he'll feel it and he'll explain what was there, and yeah.
Wow. Well, I don't know about you, Antonio, but I thought this is really fascinating. Oh my God.
This was incredible. So thank you, and thank you.
Yes. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have one last question for him, and then let me plug that I'm a broker with Christian and Company. I sell real estate, so I need you guys to help me sell your house so that I can buy more equipment to satisfy my addiction. Call me 585-613-5634.
Before he goes back to a life of crime.
Yeah, in Washington State. And my final question, which is actually a trolling question: Klipsch or Bose?
We used to sell Bose. We stopped because they turned into a different company. I think their headphones are pretty cool.
Okay.
It's a way bigger company. I think I would have to, without pause at all, say Klipsch.
Oh. Okay. Bose does really good aviation headsets.
Yeah. You know.
Well, they do really cool headphones, noise canceling headphones.
Yeah.
That's what I use, actually, very often.
Okay.
I think if Bose wasn't such a big company, then, I mean, we used to sell Bose. We had brand new 901s in the store. And they got to a point where it was like, you're going to have to sell 200,000 to 300,000 like Best Buy to remain a Bose, retailer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, then I guess it's just not a very good fit. Thank you. And that's that. If we could just carry Bose and just have them, when people wanted them, cool. But it just wasn't that important, I guess.
Okay.
It wasn't that important to us. Klipsch, I think, are very cool.
Yeah, both of those companies back in the 70s and 80s were both doing major sound reproduction. I saw George Benson with a Bose configuration where it was these huge domes. They were just tweeters. And there were no cabinets, no woofers, nothing, just these tweeters, and it filled an auditorium completely, the entire audio range from pump and bass to crystal high end. And then I saw Gil Scott Heron do a show with Klipschorn, a Klipschorn PA system, man. I mean, this is like, good Lord. I don't know if those guys do that any longer.
Klipsch are amazing speakers. They're similar to these in that they're super efficient. You can play a pair of nice corner horns with equipment like this, and they'll sound fabulous.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
They're both good.
With that being said,
that's the acquitted answer.
Yeah.
Dr. Jones, I bid you adieu. Thank you very much, Erik.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wow, man.
That was good.
Hey, you want more Mack-n-Cheese? Mack-n-Cheesemusic.blog, on YouTube at Brian at Mack-n-Cheese, Instagram and Twitter, www.mackandcheese.com. And thank you, Anchor.fm, for hosting this podcast. Take it away, Bruno.
Don't sell yourself short, Brian. You're a tremendous slouch.